So Anthony, I'll turn things over to you.
All right. Well, I did go to Del Castle. Dan wasn't my teacher because I graduated right before he got there. But I went to Del Castle, took welding, did all 4 years there. I didn't co-op for MDavis. I actually co-op for a sheet metal company, which was a good experience. It showed me what I didn't want to do. So I continued looking for opportunities and stuff like that. I had a friend that worked here at MDavis, and he got me a job here. And I think I started at $9.50 an hour when I was 19 years old. Just I came to work every day to work my hardest and everything. I've been here for 5 years, and I'm over $30 an hour now. And I'm actually a supervisor now. I'm 24 now, so I'm a supervisor, and I run the steel shop down here. I started off as a welder, and I really enjoyed it. It's something that I just really have something to lean back on now, because right now, since I'm a supervisor, I don't weld anymore. I handle a lot of things, and I help fabricate now. So technically I'm a steel fitter. But I went to the apprenticeship program after high school. So now I'm a journeyman welder. And that was just a big thing that I wanted to do, because in case things don't work out here and I have to move on or do something else, say I want to go to South Dakota or Montana, and I just want to go weld on pipelines and go do things like that. I could literally pack my truck up right now, head on out there, take a weld test, and I could be making anywhere between $40 and $150 an hour, depending on what you're doing. If you have your own setup, that kind of stuff. That gets into a lot of different details that everybody should look into. Yeah, but with everything that happened with COVID and stuff like that, a lot of guys went into early retirement, and I came to work every day, didn't cause too much ruckus, anything like that. I just like worked as hard as I could, and I ended up getting into the position where I am, where I am successful, and I'm doing a lot. I mean, I manage a crew of about 20 guys. I hand the work out to them, answer their questions, make sure everything goes well. And the job we just finished up down here in the shop, it was the $2.2 million job. I mean, I have to manage a lot. So there's a lot of pressure, but for what it's worth, it's a lot of fun. Being in this trade is a lot of fun, and I don't regret it at all.
Anthony, can I ask you a couple questions? This is Alicia from Wayman Fire. I'm on the call on behalf of ABC, which is Associated Builders and Contractors, representing over 220 employers that believe that the Votech school is the power of our workforce. Welding is an extraordinarily important trade. So I'm just here working with Anthony so you guys can get the most information from him as you possibly can. I know, Anthony, you said that what you're doing is handing out jobs and managing people, but what does that really look like in an 8-hour day? I know you said you started at 6, which probably means you roll in there earlier than 6 so that you can, like, what does it look like from 6 to break time in the morning, then lunchtime? And what are you actually managing? What are you doing to manage those guys that are actually welding? And what kind of particular projects are those welders doing that you're managing right now? You talk about that $2.2 million job might be a good example.
Yeah.
Maybe what kind of industry that job was. You don't need to mention the name, but like the specifics of what that actually meant.
So we get in here at 6. I'm usually here a lot earlier just to kind of get everything ready to go. The guys come in, we do our morning safety meeting and everything like that, which is something that most companies do. Once the safety meeting's over, depending on, because when I hand somebody a job, they're going to, it's not going to be a new job every day. A lot of guys are going to be on the same job for 3 months at a time, stuff like that. We fitters, welders, and like this industry isn't just being a welder. That's why I like that I picked welding and everything like that, because when I came in, I it grew a different skill set as well. So I'm still a welder. I can do all those things that I used to be able to do, but I have a new skill set. So it's a foot in the door. It's an opportunity, and that you can really grow. But I'll hand the jobs out to the guys, and what I normally do is answer a lot of questions. And whenever anybody needs some kind of help, I can jump in and help whoever it is. I'm not usually tied down to one task or anything like that. But uh, down here at the Newark shop in MDavis, it's mostly structural steel and pipe work over in the separate side of the shop that I don't work on. But it's a lot of flux core welding, occasional stick, a lot of TIG welding, because we do handle a lot of stainless and other exotic metals. So the welders are usually really busy, and I'm not a CWI, but I am certified to inspect certain types of welds and things like that. So I'll have to go around, make sure that the welders are putting down quality welds, tell them if they need to grind them out, tell them if they need to fix anything or if they're doing great. We also do a thing called weld logs, which when you put a weld down, it's numbered, labeled, and it's put into documentation. So, I mean, welders get paid well here because there's a lot of pressure on them. So if a weld fails, that's the person that they look at. And you really got to be on your A game. It's a lot of fun. It's high intensity, but it's a lot of pressure too. And I mean, you have to perform.
Look, I would just want to go back for one quick second. I know I appreciate you talking about the wages, just so that the guys that are listening have an idea of what that means. If someone makes $10 an hour over the course of a year, that's $20,000 a year. So these welders are probably one of the quickest ramp up to one of the highest wages, and overall one of the highest waging earners of all the trades. So when Anthony is saying that he is at $30 an hour, that means $60,000 a year. When he speaks about going on the road, and you can look at $40 an hour to $100 an hour, if you multiply the hourly wage times 2, that generally gets you to where your annual salary is, loosely speaking, because there's 2,000 hours ish that are worked in a year. So at $100,000 at $100 an hour as a wage, that's $200,000 a year. That might sound fanciful, but for a welder, it's possible. Now, what Anthony was talking about was going on the road and having your own setup, which involves some investment and some risk and all of that. However, at $30 an hour, $60,000 a year, as a young man, that helps buy a nice home. It helps buy a truck. It helps put away for a beach house or a boat. I don't want to put him on the spot, but I think it's important that these young guys understand how quickly you are able to have a nice, steady, solid income, which provides for your family however you need that. If you have a young family, if you're taking care of grandparents, the welding industry ramps up very quick in terms of wages, and it's very stable. Can you talk about, Anthony, some of the other friends that you might have as welders that are doing totally different things? I don't know, like working in civil or structural or in other industries not necessarily other industries, but outside of MDavis.
I'm sorry, you cut out for a little bit. I really didn't catch that question.
Other friends in the welding industry that are doing different things to show the breadth and different types of places. Like, I'm a fire protection company. We install fire sprinklers and fire alarm systems. That's essentially plumbers and low voltage. However, we hire welders because they have to fabricate the pipe. And pipe is everywhere, right? Whether it's plumbers or HVAC or bridges or cars or roads, it's everywhere.
Yeah. I mean, look, even here at MDavis, there's not much I haven't seen or done just in the short 5 years that I've been here. Um, there, I mean, I have buddies that are plumbers that have welding certs because they had to get a welding cert just to be able to do certain things. And like here at MDavis, I've sweat copper, which I mean, copper airlines, that kind of stuff. You're just brazing them together. Um, I've seen I've never welded Inconel, but Inconel is an exotic metal that I'm sure some of you are probably aware of. It's just it it's really hard to weld, especially with different processes like stick. So I mean the really talented guys that can just go in and do that kind of stuff. I mean welding's everywhere. Refineries, um, pharmaceutical, that's huge. Like that's a lot of our work. DuPont, chemical processing, and anything really. I mean, pretty much without welders and stuff like that, a lot of the country doesn't get to do what they want to. I mean, if a guy doesn't come in and fix one of the welds on a pipe at some factory, then you might not get Oreos one day. It's just there's a crazy chain effect, and right now there's a shortage of welders, so there's plenty of opportunity out there. It's just we need to get guys interested and get them into the trade.
I wanted to talk a smidge about employability. I know that the teachers at your school are really always telling you guys and women the right things to do, and you might not hear them. Like sometimes you don't hear your parents when they say something, but if someone else says it, um, we have over 150 employees in all sorts of different trades, both in offices and several different trades. And what I always tell people is it doesn't matter what you know or how much you know. It's the other stuff about outside of your trade or your skill set. It's the being able to be on time to an interview, looking someone in the eye, having your shirt tucked in. Those things, if you can do those things, the guy next to you can't. In order to get into these larger companies in our area in Delaware, you might not realize, but we've got every single major Fortune 100, Fortune 500 company here, from credit cards to Amazon to Walmart to Kmart, Kellogg's, Playtex, Oreo cookies, Pepsi, and then the companies that you probably don't hear of that much, pharmaceutical companies that you don't know of. There's some very, very large companies here, and they have very strict requirements. So if Anthony were to go on site somewhere, his employer has to put together a letter that states he had a drug test on this date and he had a background check on this date. You don't provide the information, but I have to provide a letter that states when he had those things done. And they generally have to be within 30 to 60 or 90 days of going on site. You can't even drive a truck to make a delivery onto a DuPont site without that letter, especially any construction you see coming out of the ground. So to have a clean drug test is very important to be able to maintain a clean drug test, and to have a clean background check is also very important. And the other thing I talk about employability when you're trying to get a job is to keep your social media as clean as your drug test, because people look at it and what your social media says about you, it's not private, even if you think it is private. If there's crazy stuff out there, it's somehow linked to you and your picture. And there's a lot of people that want jobs. And if I can find someone that doesn't have crazy stuff on the social media, that person with the clean social media will get it every single time. Anthony, you maybe, I'm guessing, have seen lots of funny things come and go. Is there some story, maybe one story you could share about like a guy who was super skilled who just couldn't show up because of whatever reason and then lost out on some promotion or lost out on a big job? Because it's not about the skill set really, it's about the being able to show up to work, be on time, and do what you're told. That's really all you need to succeed. And I'm sure you've seen, unfortunately, probably bad stories.
Yeah, I got a few. Well, me being promoted to a supervisor now and everything, I really see a lot of. I know about a lot now too. We had a guy down here that I believe they got him from a temp agency, which is like they just bring employees in, fill them in where we need them, that kind of thing. He he came in with all his own tools and stuff. Smart guy, really experienced iron worker. He came to work on time every day. Really didn't run his mouth or anything like that. But he came in one day and we needed him to climb on a structure. And safety is a huge thing. Almost every company I've ever worked for. So like it, if you're gonna do it safe, do it right. It's huge. It's a big deal. And with MDavis, they supply you with a harness. And when you climb above 6 feet, you need to be tied off or anything like that. And so the guy comes in with his own harness, and we had to let him know it's like, hey, you can't use that harness. Our safety department didn't approve it. We have supplied harnesses that you received that are approved by safety. And this dude freaked out, lost it, and they had to fire him on the spot because he refused to go through this proper safety protocol. Which, when you have your safety orientation when you first start working at MDavis, you're made aware of everything. You're given a handbook, and everything needs to be. You need to follow those rules. And we actually had to let go of a co-op recently too because of his tardiness. He came to work 5 minutes late. When we go on break, he'd go to break 2 or 3 minutes early, come back 5 minutes late. Same thing for lunch. He would leave the building 5 minutes early, and it was starting to notice it. We gave him one verbal warning, two written warnings, and he was let go. So I mean, it's just being here on time is a big deal. Just being here is a big deal.
I think we're running out of time here. What would be the one or the best piece of advice that someone gave you, or piece of advice that you would give these students sitting here today, knowing what you know now?
When I got into the trade, I started making decent money pretty quick. So one of the big things that my old foreman told me when I first started working here, he said, put into your 401k, get a Roth IRA, look into the financial. These are things like I did not learn in high school, and I'm pretty sure kids still really don't get it in high school. Save for your retirement, because you can't bank on what the government's going to give you when you retire, because I think the retirement age now is 67, and I don't want to work until I'm 67. So just take care of those kinds of things. You won't regret it. You might be a little strapped on cash now, but yeah, just take care of your money for the future.
I'm sorry, for those that are getting ready to co-op or maybe going into their first kind of real work situation, what would be like a basic tip that probably you wish someone would have told you?
Put $50 out of every paycheck into a savings account. You don't have to get some kind of retirement fund right now. You can do it when you graduate high school, but you could do it when you're 21. It just do it when you're young, and put some money away.
Hey, Anthony, real quick, a lot of these students are probably a little bit nervous because through COVID, they haven't had the same type of in-person training and hands-on training that we would normally have in the shop. So, they're preparing to go out to co-op, but they haven't had the same amount of welding time in the shop that they would in preparation of that. So, a little bit of hesitation there going out into the workforce, out of the school, and maybe not overly confident in what their skills would be, but eager to work. What kind of advice would you tell them as a supervisor? Maybe one of them would work underneath of you. What does that look like for you, given they'd be coming out with maybe not the same skill set?
And if the kid comes in, usually when a co-op comes in, we just assume you're not going to know anything. I don't know how that's going to look in other companies and everything like that. But when a co-op comes in, we assume they know nothing, figure out what they do know, then we'll just work off their strengths. But you got to come to work on time. You got to be willing to learn and listen, not give attitude or get mad when somebody's just trying to give you a little bit of advice or something like that. So, and I mean, it's just, you come to work, you want to learn the trade, because when I finished high school, I thought I knew plenty. I didn't know anything. And I didn't have to deal with COVID. I had all the hands on normal high school experience. And it turned out I didn't know anything. And I learned that extremely quick. So just come to work. If you're not comfortable with something either, make the person in charge of you aware of that. It's like, I've never done this, so can you help me? Can I maybe do something else? Like, it's just like, if you're not comfortable, don't put yourself in a position to fail, and don't let anybody else put you in a position to fail, because that makes them look bad, and you ultimately look bad too.
I think that people think that if they make a mistake technically or make a mistake on the job, that that's a big deal and like a fireable offense. And of course, we want to make sure that things are done safely and done properly. However, I think you might agree with me, Anthony, that it's the 5 minutes late that is more fireable than I made a bad weld and I didn't do this. I didn't execute this task correctly. I know that we've had people 20 years ago, pull this big giant lever, which shut down every ATM machine for a big bank the weekend of their 200th centennial celebration when all the bigwigs were here, and no ATMs worked on the entire East Coast. It's a big deal. He made a mistake, and he never lost his job because it wasn't on purpose. It's not the failing to do your job correctly, it's the other stuff. And I think I see a female on here, and I just wanted to say a couple of things that female in this industry might feel like it's an uphill battle and that you are lost in the shuffle. I would say exactly the opposite. Everyone knows that females tend to be, they stand out and everyone remembers you. They tend to be really great welders as well, specifically in the welding trade. And I know that MDavis has several female welders. So please stay at it, because all those guys kind of get lost in the shuffle, but the females absolutely stand out. So I think I've taken all the time we were allotted. I appreciate everyone listening. No one really had a question, but I'm sure that Anthony would be willing to speak to you. If you had questions, you could email him or contact him about very granular kind of questions or big lofty ones. So thanks to the teachers for making it happen, and we appreciate your time. I think Anthony would stay if there was extra questions too.
Yeah, thanks for your time, Anthony.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
no problem. Thanks,
And
guys.
Alicia, appreciate it so much.